Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And this week I had 18 comics. I go least favorite to best pick of the week, so let's get started. Number 18 for me this week is Strikeforce issue 1. I honestly got this book on whim because it was a new, Avengers-style book, a new Marvel book, and I wanted to try it out because Jessica Drew and Wiccan was in it. So I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. And honestly, I've not been able to get into an Avengers book in years. And even though this is not a real Avengers book, it is definitely a tie-in type story. We even get to see the Avengers in this issue. But I could not get into the characters here. I was just kind of bored with the issue, so I just did not feel invested enough for a second issue or for this issue in general. I didn't feel like I needed this team at all by the end of the issue, and that's kind of how I felt about a lot of these Avengers books, like Savage Avengers and the rest of the line. So overall, giving this 1.5 stars. The artwork was okay in this issue. Honestly, I thought it was pretty bland. There wasn't anything that really hooked me with this one, which is why I gave it 1.5 stars. Moving on to number 17. Number 17 for me is Marvel Team Up, Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel issue 6. Supposedly, this is the last issue already. I don't know what they were trying to do with this book. We had the first 2 issues that was Spider-Man and Miss Marvel, and like, that was fun, cool. So is it just gonna be a Miss Marvel book? And then you had this Captain Marvel arc where I feel like they could have done a little bit more with Carol and Kamala. It was about the Captain Marvel mythos, I would say, but I didn't really get a lot from their personality, even though they were in a lot of pages together. It was just a lot of execution about the plot, and it was disappointing. That's kind of how this series ended, and you're like, okay, so what was the point of this series? It just kind of felt really filler, and I didn't have that much fun with it, sadly. I was gonna probably drop it after this, depending on what the next issue was, but there is no next issue, so I finished it up. I do think the Spider-Man adventure was a little bit more fun, which is disappointing, because I do like Captain Marvel and Kamala's dynamic, and I wish we got to see more of them, and more of their personality and more of their personal connection in general. And the artwork was okay for me. Again, it was just a kind of blah book for me personally. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, and that is number 17. Moving on to number 16, which is Betty Page Unbound, issue 4. I'm actually a huge Betty Page fan of these comics, and I like her original series, the actual series, but here it kind of went off the rails for me, where it's Crisis on Infinite Bettys. It's all these different realities that Betty's going through, and she's playing off of different Dynamite characters, which is definitely a cool concept. I just didn't really love the execution. I kind of missed the plain old espionage stories we would get with Betty. So it was an okay series for me. I will finish it up with that next epilogue issue, but I hope we get back to the simple espionage, sarcastic type storylines we usually get with Betty. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars, I believe, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15, which is Shazam, issue 7. This book has been delayed for a really long time, so I know a lot of people, honestly, who have dropped the book because it's been delayed for so long, and that's the biggest disappointment of this book. Obviously, it's having to wait so long, but also because I honestly haven't been loving this arc. I definitely love the beginning, and I do like these characters. I like the movie. Honestly, I feel like I understand these characters more because of the movie, and I wanted to like this issue, but I don't like that they're going into all these different magical worlds. Again, I'm kind of getting bored with it. So, I do like the artwork overall. I feel that I didn't really like the switching of the artwork, though, because I like the plain old artwork we would get. But then we go to the end, and it's definitely less detailed and a completely new artist there. So, I think it was because of time, because, again, this book was just so delayed. But I liked different moments of the story, though. I enjoyed Mary and Billy talking to their parents, their foster parents. I thought was the best part, and how Victor reacted, saying, "Oh my God, you're a superhero! That's so cool!" So that was definitely the best part of the issue, which is why I lean more towards 3 stars. Not a bad issue, just I don't know if it was worth the wait. And again, this arc has already been going on for a long time, and now with the wait between issues, it's even longer, and I just want to move on to the next story. Actually, I gave that 2.5 stars, not 3 stars. Moving on to number 14, and that is Action Comics, issue 1015. I was actually really looking forward to this issue, but it also was the arc that's really going to define if I'm going to continue getting Action Comics. Now, this is the last Superman book I'm picking up. I dropped Superman. I sadly don't read Supergirl. Maybe I'll pick it up with the new creative team, Supergirl. But yeah, this is the last stand for Superman for me. And one thing I have to say, out of all the Bendis stories that have come out, which is a lot, I think the best thing he's done for DC so far is Naomi. I love this character. I think she's really fresh, but at the same time feels really iconic and really delves into very important themes within comics. So especially dealing with Superman. So I was really excited for that, but most of this issue is an exposition type issue, where if you've read Naomi, you kind of get the gist. You know what Naomi's going through, and it's just her explaining everything to Superman, and I was kind of bored by it. And even like their dynamic, it was fine. There was no sparks for me. And then by the end, you go into the story they have been focusing on throughout Action Comics with Rose and Thorn and Leviathan, and I'm like, this doesn't mesh well. So it was a weird balance of an issue. There's a lot of juxtaposition within this issue as well, and the artwork is really not my thing. I really feel like it's very stilted, the artwork. I'm just not a huge fan. I will try finishing off this arc, I think, and then make my decision about Action Comics, but I'm pretty sure this is on the drop pile for me, sadly, for a while. So, given that 2.5 stars, we'll be excited for when Naomi shows up in Young Justice, and also, you know, obviously her regular comic to continue, because I really think she's the best part of what Bendis has done for DC so far. Alright, moving on to number 13, which is Powers of X, issue 5, so a bit higher than it usually is, and even though, you know, it's still the stuff I don't quite like, which is mostly just being talked at, and I wish there was, you know, more character moments and less exposition, but I like the direction it's going. I loved Emma Frost here. So, you know, the book I'm most excited for is definitely Miranda's, the Kitty and Hellfire book. So, I wish it was just called Hellfire Club because, you know, the actual title it is doesn't quite make sense. But I am super excited for where Emma Frost is going to go, and it seems like she's in power, but I also like that she has to work with somebody that she really hates, Sebastian, and you know, what is that going to mean for her power? She kicked him out, and then she's like, all right, I guess I'll bring him in, but I need another person, and it's Kitty, and you're like, why is it Kitty? Emma hates Kitty, and I'm really curious to see what this weird dynamic is going to be like. So honestly, this was just an awesome tease for that book, and I really enjoyed it. So I liked it, and again, I enjoyed this issue more than others. Always, the artwork is really good, especially because it's mostly a talking head book. So, overall, I'm going to give that 3 stars, and that is number, what are we up to, 14? That was number 13. Moving on to number 12. And that is Harleen, issue 1, and this is a 3-part book, and I hate that it's not a comic size, because this is going to be really hard to put away. So, I actually was pretty excited for this book. It's probably one of my more anticipated issues of the week, and I like Harley, and I'm glad they're doing more with her character, and just seeing different versions of her, because, you know, she's definitely been reinvented a lot throughout the years, and her narrative and personality has changed a lot throughout the years, and what type of stories they want to tell for her. I will also say I'm a really big fan of this writer/artist. I will not butcher your name. I know it's a little hard to pronounce. I think it's, I'm not even going to try. But I do like this artist a lot. I've read a lot of his books in the past, and I love his art. I think it's great, and he brings so much personality to, especially the facial expressions and humor, which totally fits Harley. So the artwork blew my mind. I thought that was great. Story, on the other hand, I don't know if I really needed it. It's a prequel to stuff we know about Harley already. She falls in love with the Joker. And I think if you're a hardcore Harley fan, you will really enjoy this. And again, it's really cool to see a different point of view of her narrative because she's been so defined by her relationship with the Joker. But do we want to go back to these days? It's like DC keeps trying to step away from it and then keeps going back to it. And I don't know what path they want to pick for Harley Quinn. So I don't know if it gave me enough for next issue. I had fun with this one. It was very long, honestly. I kind of wish it was just a 22-pager. But this is one where you have to, like, expect you're reading a graphic novel, in all honesty. It's not just a regular issue, and maybe you'll appreciate it a little bit more. But it was the first issue I read this week, and again, it just felt a little lengthy, the dialogue, and there's certain parts where I started to lose interest. So don't think I'm going to get the next issue, but glad I tried out this one. And that is Harleen issue 1, and I give that 3 stars. That was a big slam on the floor because it's such a big book. All right, number 11 for me is a book I kind of tried out on whim, but it's very much me, so of course I'm going to try it out. And that's an indie. I don't know what company. It's Vault. Relics of Youth, issue 1, and it was promoted as Lost Meets Morning Glory, so yeah, of course I'm gonna get this book. I love teen books, I like mysteries, so, I will say, I think there's a lot of potential here. They do a pretty good job at introducing who the characters are, how they're related, and then they might get superpowers in the end, the island blows up, so what's gonna happen next? So I'm already curious to see, again, how they're all connected, what are their relationship gonna be, because they're all very contrasting each other, their personalities. So I will also say, though, I think there were some things where I wish there was more personality to it. I don't feel like it was able to stand out compared to other teen books. There's so many teen books out there. There are so many mystery stories out there in this vein. And I hope as issues go on, which I probably will at least pick up the next issue, because it is the genre I really like. It has more of a hook and more of a personality to say, this is why Relics of Youth is different and why you should pick up this book in particular, not a Morning Glories or any other YA novel or YA book. So Relics of Youth issue 1 gets 3 stars, and that is number 12. And that's number 11. Number 10 is Batgirl issue 39, and I actually like the story. I think it's a slow burn, and I like it, dislike it, because there's elements I enjoy of Batgirl being able to look at herself and understand her trauma and really get to see what she's gone through. We get to see her return to Burnside and even some newer elements. Her maybe being interested in Bard, even though he's not a good guy, but he's trying to be a good guy. And these little moments really get me interested. But then the overall scope with Oracle, I like the idea of her kind of fighting herself. But it's something that I feel like has been done before, A. And then B is the only type of story or big arc that Barbara's had since DC Rebirth, honestly. There's so many creative teams that have tried tackling this Oracle story, and it never lands for me completely. So I hope I'm wrong and it continues and blows my mind, but as of right now, it's just kind of there, and it's a middle ground book for me. Also, the artwork I'm not a fan of. It kind of feels messy to me, at least for my style. I don't really like the line work very much, so that's kind of another negative. But overall, I love Barbara, as you guys know, so I'll always pick up this book, but I kind of wish it was in the speed it was going on with the last creative team with their beginning of their arc. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9. Number 9 for me is The Avant-Guards issue 8. So, this is just a fun slice of life book, and we get to learn a little bit more about, I'll call her Star. She's another character. She has another name in the book, but that's what the dad kept calling her in the issue. And we learn that her dad's a super famous astronaut, and she just doesn't want to be in the shadow of her family, while her friend wants to be a comedian, and her parents won't allow it. So again, it's very slice of life. There's not a lot of plot to it, but there's a lot of fun character interactions. There's good basketball games happening. So I enjoyed that. basketball action, I guess. And yeah, it's just a fun book if you just want something chill to read between, you know, I don't know, Batman and crazy stuff happening in the big two. So the Avant-Guards issue 8 gets 3.5 stars, and always like learning more about these characters with every issue, and it's cool that they spotlight different characters again with every issue. All right, speaking of Batman, next one is Batman Superman issue 2. I don't think this issue was as strong as the last, but it's definitely one of the more solid books at DC, and one thing I'll say is that I honestly never could get into the Who Laughs story. I've read Metal, didn't really like it. I maybe have read one Who Laughs one shot. I know there's been plenty of them, and I never really enjoyed them very much. But with this series, I feel like they ground it enough and explain it enough where you feel the emotions of these characters. And that's something I really like, and especially in Batman and Superman's point of view, as maybe some of their friends become controlled by the Who Laughs Batman. So overall, I thought it was good. I think it was a little bit too action heavy at times where I'm like, oh, I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into the characters, but I think it builds up to an interesting mystery with these Batarangs. Even though the solicits kind of spoil who's going to be, you know, these characters, it's still cool that they're dealing with this. And again, hopefully we get some good character beats between these people, especially because they're all I would say from different planes here. We got Donna Troy and then Commissioner Gordon. Like, how are they going to interact with each other? And the artwork, man, I love Dave Marquez, so it's really cool to see him at DC doing something different, and his action is just pure oddness. It's so good, his action, especially for, again, something that was a little bit more action-heavy as an issue. So Batman Superman issue 2 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number, that's number 8. Number 7 for me is Angel, issue 5. I really like this book. Every single issue surprises me in the best way possible. With this issue, I will say I couldn't get to the 4-star range because the little nitpicks I did have is that I felt like Angel and Gunn's interaction happened a little bit too quickly because the event's going to be coming along. So I think there was just too many coincidences in that regard. And then also them trying to stick some of the ideas of the event. I'm like, oh, I could have done without that. But the Gunn stuff, I loved him. I thought he was great. I liked the reasoning why he wants to hunt vampires. I like that he's going to team up with Angel. I like the artwork. I think it really works for the book. It has definitely some nice shadowing and definitely good expression as well. So, overall, really like this book, and again, there's maybe small nitpicks I had for this issue, but still a really fun series that reimagines Angel's TV show. So, and, you know, even before the TV show as well. So, I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Dial H for Hero, issue 7. And honestly, this issue could have easily been a filler issue, and that's what's so interesting. It really is just these small stories about some of the citizens of Metropolis being controlled by the H-Dial, or accepting the H-Dial. And you get their, like, mini origins, and you feel for them by the end of the story. You have one character who trying to lose weight and have a different body image because his boyfriend doesn't like his body image, so you get to see that story, and how they're all different superheroes. And then there's one story where one of the characters ends up being a dog. So, and obviously the thing I love is that every origin has such a different style to it, and it's mind-blowing, the artwork for this book. I really think that Dial H is presenting some of the best artwork in comic stands right now, especially with diversity. I know that this issue in particular did have different artists, but it wasn't jarring by any means because you were having the different origin stories. And every ending you're like, like I felt for that character. So even though it was a filler, I think this is exactly the way to do a filler issue. So Dial H for Hero issue 7 gets 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5. Number 5 for me is... Make sure, yeah. And I have books falling already. Okay, number 5 is Jughead, Time Police, issue 4. This book is pure fun. If you're not reading an Archie book, honestly, I think this is the Archie book you should be reading. Again, it's so much fun where we get to see different Jugheads from different multiverses. You get a cable version of Jughead talking to our Jughead, and then this snooty, snotty character of Jughead who's the villain, and it's time travel at its best. There's a lot of great humor in here, and yeah, if you're just looking for a really fun book, read it. The artwork is so good, talking about different types and styles of Jughead. Look at that last page. Same artist, all different styles. Even get to have the moody Riverdale version. So, yeah, I really enjoy this book. I'm sad it's ending, and I hope we have a sequel of some sort with after issue 5. So I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Batman Curse of the White Knight. And I got the Gordon issue, which definitely a lot happened with Gordon. And that's issue 3. Definitely picks up steam here. I didn't love the first 2 issues. I was a little disappointed because I loved White Knight so much. I'm like, did we need this sequel? And it picks up full steam where, first of all, Batman and Harley kind of make this book. They're dynamic. Harley's pregnant, and, Batman thinks that she's the only one who could get Jack to talk and get him out of the Joker. Doesn't happen. She's in childbirth. Batman doesn't know what to do. And then everything that happened with Batgirl's identity being revealed, and, even though I haven't liked Azrael, he does showcase himself as a good villain by the end, where he kills Commissioner Gordon, maybe, and that's why the next issue is going to have Barbara with her eyes red. She's going to be in a lot of rage here, and I'm really excited for that arc as well. And one thing I love about Sean Murphy's series, is that he does the artwork and writing, and I think that tells a whole different narrative because he's taking both roles, and I love that. But also just how much he knows these characters, but being able to put more of a modern spin on them. And, I think it's rare to see Dick Grayson, Barbara, and Batman together in so many issues. Usually it's like, there's Barbara, there's Dick. They rarely are together. Usually you have like Tim and Damian and all these other characters surrounding them. So it's really cool to see the core back and having some really interesting twists is what made White Knight so cool. So it's cool to see that they're still doing it with this book. And I really like the cliffhanger and where that could take us with the character possibilities. Again, making Azrael a bit more of a threatening villain by the end of this. So overall, I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Ghost Spider, issue 2. This is just a really great book, and as you guys know, I love Spider-Gwen, but I really enjoy the way they balanced the 616 and Earth 65 as I was going to say Commissioner Gordon, as Gwen's dad realizes or, tells Gwen that J. Jonah Jameson's son, who did all that chaos, had the bomb in the previous series, just goes off scot-free. And Gwen's pissed off about this, but she's got to go to school. And when she's at school, she's got to, obviously deal with going to school. But in the background, we have Jackle, who's obviously obsessed with Gwen. So I like that there's villains in 2 different storylines here, as Gwen just tries to adjust, being a college student, trying to make friends, but also, making her suit okay, eating a lot of kale chips. But overall, really solid issue, and I like the build-up towards greater things for the future. And just a lot of good character moments here with Gwen and her dad. And, as always, really good artwork. I enjoy, especially the emotions with the art. But there's some good action here, too. Not as much, but there's some good Gwen action in the middle of the issue here, as we get to see her fight off some random thugs. So Ghost Spider for me gets 4 stars. I thought this was a really solid issue, and I can't wait to see where that Jackal story goes. There's another friend she makes is also making a deal, so who the hell is she? So there's a lot of questions with this issue. Alright, moving on to number 2. And that is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 30. And I hate with the variant covers, they don't put it in the front, they put it in the back. But look at this variant cover. I love the Immortal Hulk variant covers, but this issue I really enjoyed. I thought it was really solid. I'm actually going to do a topic video this Friday, probably, dealing with Kindred. Who is Kindred? And prediction I have about that, especially after this issue. So wait and see with that. My only complaint with this issue is that there's a lot of exposition of stuff we already know, which I also kind of like because it's not boring exposition. It's actually pretty interesting, made just as a Spider fan. But, you know, the Marvel motto has always been, you know, any issue could be someone's first. So I do like that Nick Spencer takes the time to explain things. But if you are reading Absolute Carnage, there is a lot of repeated information and even repeated scenes from that. And that's like my one nitpick of probably why it didn't make number one. But I do like the teases that come to see who Kindred is. I like that Norman Osborn definitely has some good moments here. And I love Kindred's narrative about how Norman Osborn has already won because of Peter's guilt and how he never got over Gwen's death and anything that Norman's been doing. So I'm definitely curious to see what Norman's part will be as Absolute Carnage continues and as Kindred grows as a villain. Kind of wish we'd find out who he is already. But I also really like that Ryan Ottley is back. I love his artwork. I like his take on the symbiotes as well. So, really, really fun issue here. Again, some small nitpicks with exposition, but overall, some really good character moments. It was cool to go back in time and see Gwen and Flash back when, you know, Gwen was about to die. And I like that Nick Spencer, you know, he definitely ships MJ and Peter, and he pretty much says, like, you know, he always loved MJ, which many Spider-Man writers have said, like, hey, if Gwen didn't die, Peter still would end up with MJ. It's always nice to see that, as much as I like Gwen too. MJ's Endgame, as we know. But yeah, I enjoyed this issue. Solid stuff, and I was really surprised by this one, because I wasn't sure how it was going to tie into Absolute Carnage, but it did a really good job focusing more on the Norman Osborn stuff, which, you know, has been hanging over Amazing Spider-Man for a little while since Dan Slott's run. Alright, moving on to number 1, which is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 43. I really enjoyed this issue. I wasn't sure about the villain at first. I'm like, who's this dog guy? What's going on? Kind of like the Power Rangers. But the reason it became my number 1 is because how much he proved himself as a villain. You open up with him just attacking the Rangers, but attacking them personally. So first, Kimberly gets a broken hand or a broken thumb, because obviously she can't use her bow if she has a broken thumb. So, and then he attacks Tommy full throttle so he could break apart and wound the Rangers. And then on the flip side, you have stuff going on with the Omega Rangers that slowly is building with what's happened with Shattered Grid, as Jason's remembering what that new team dynamic has been like, who can they trust. And I like that Kimberly gives that phone call by the end of the issue where she's like, you know, everything's okay. Yeah, not everything's okay. Can I talk to my best friend right now? And she's like, nah, it's fine. And then I love that voiceover is going through what's actually happening now with the dog character fighting our Rangers within their Megazord and them possibly losing, and what is going to happen to them, and what guilt will that bring Trini as she hears that message. So really good stuff. I love the action. It's really kinetic, and I liked how action-packed this issue was, but also how emotional and character-driven it was. And I think that's really what Power Rangers and Ryan Power especially has been really great at, is especially with his new run in Go-Go and Mighty Morphin together with Necessary Evil. He's been doing a great job at balancing both action and character, which is so nice to see in a comic. So overall, I'm going to give that 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this issue. A lot of good surprises. You know, usually we're used to the putties, you know, we're used to the Power Ranger villains that are mustache twirling, and it's so cool to see a character that has a lot of depth and continues to have a lot of depth, and I'm really excited to see more of him. So that's my number 1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I gave that 4.5 stars. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go check me out on Facebook and Twitter. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer. Also, go check out our podcast on Comic Frontline that airs every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time if you want to check out comic book news and our favorite comics of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye, guys.